Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to This Hijabi Life. I am your host, Hakeemah, and on this show, we talk to Muslim women about their journeys with hijab, their style and fashion. We love to talk to designers on this show, and we love to talk about the hijab journey and being visibly Muslim in the modern world. One of my favorite genres of TV shows are challenge shows, reality shows, or game shows. And every time I watch one of these shows where people do hard things, they go through challenges, and they win big at the end, I'm always rooting for the person who kind of looks like me. And I'm always hoping that there's a Muslim on these shows, especially fashion shows, because I think we have a very unique perspective on fashion being hijabi women. And I was so delighted, and I've been such a fan of our next guest, Ayana Ife, who was on one of my favorite shows, Project Runway, and is working on amazing projects with an activewear line called Ayana Active. So I want to invite Ayana on the screen. Assalamu alaikum, Ayana.
Walaikum salam. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for the invitation.
Nice to meet you too. And alhamdulillah, thank you so much for joining. I'm such a fan. And I was recently watching a video where you spoke with Al Jazeera Stream. And you spoke about your story, and that's what I love to get into on this show. I mean, fans like me of Project Runway saw you years ago on Project Runway and have been watching your journey since. But I love to get the backstory. I love to get the inspiration, starting with who you were as a child. What I saw in that video was that you're from a big family. So tell us more about how it was growing up in a huge family like yours, and what that did to inspire you to be so creative.
Absolutely. So I definitely came from a pretty large family. My parents together, my Ummi and Abu, they had 11 children together. And I am number 8. So I have quite a few siblings above me and a few below me. When I was about 6 years old, my Ummi taught me how to sew. She used to make these kaftans for African men in our community. And she taught me how to sew on her treadle sewing machine. And because I have 7 sisters, I was constantly getting hand-me-downs. And so I learned how to mend things. I learned how to upcycle clothing, and I learned how to put a little personality on things so that by the time the outfit reached me, it was mine, essentially. And so that really sparked my interest in fashion altogether. My siblings are pretty creative, so most of us know how to mend something. Being self-sufficient was pretty important for us, for my parents having so many children, that we should be able to do small things to help ourselves in life. And sewing was one of those things that we were taught from an early age. And yeah.
I find that sewing is so empowering because like you said, it can be something that someone has worn maybe 6 times before you. I love a thrift store. So even though I didn't get as many hand-me-downs because I only have one older sister, I was the one handing down to my 5 younger sisters.
Okay.
I would always go to thrift stores because I actually like the idea of wearing what someone else has worn, but wear it differently or style it differently or just have a different perspective on it. So I love that. I think it's very empowering to do for yourself. Like you said, in different ways. Clothing has always excited me. So I resonate with that. So one thing that you said, a quote from you, is that when you were little, you were kind of quiet. And I know that, like, if you're the 7th child, there's a lot of noise around you. Maybe there's a lot of different personalities, and someone is going to be very quiet or someone's going to be shy, and that's completely fine. But what you said was that fashion gave you a voice where you could scream really loud. So talk to us more about how fashion gave you that voice to speak up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not just the large family, but also that, we're a Caribbean family. And so we have very loud and boisterous personalities. And my older siblings, they learned that from our parents. And so when you're younger in a large family, you are the one who's told what to do. And I think, being number 8, I just sort of got mixed up in there. And I became this very quiet child. And, I was just used to sort of following orders kind of thing. And once I started to design and started to make adjustments to my older sister's clothing and wear them, it really it started out as being something fun to me, because I would find like old stitch by stitch books and different kind of old school sewing books, and because we didn't have YouTube at that time, so I would learn from these books, or I would just look at a piece of clothing and just think about what I wanted to do to it. So I kind of learned as I went. And again, when I would go out and hang out with my friends, or just be at a community event, I would get approached because of what I was wearing, because my clothing was a little bit more quirky, interesting, bright, large bows, just very different. And so people would be drawn to that and ask me, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And then I would say, "Well, I made it, or I changed it or whatever." And so then there became that interest of, "Oh, well, how did you come to do that?" So then I would tell the story of what happened and how I got, to have this outfit. And so from there, it kind of brought me out of my shell a little bit, because I was being asked questions, and I was kind of, being pushed a little bit to talk about what was happening with my clothing. So from there, it became a form of self-expression. So without even having to say anything, I was automatically approached because of my clothing. And so that really has become an underlying theme with me, even as an adult, where many times I'm approached just because of what I'm wearing. So it kind of has opened up many doors for me now. But at that time, as a young girl, it started out as me being very shy, and then it slowly became that voice. And without having to say anything, I could say so much.
That's amazing. That's actually inspiring me for my daughters, because I have an 8-year-old. She's almost 9 in a couple of days, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And sometimes it can be this conversation where, the girls didn't speak at the gathering, or they didn't speak because they're, introverted or shy. But once you give them something that they're interested in, that makes them excited, if it is clothing, if it is that, then that could definitely be a conversation starter where, they can start to get out of their shell. So that's inspiring. I'm gonna take that as a parenting tip as well. So let's talk about your inspiration as well. So you're growing up, you're getting these clothes, you're reshuffling them, tweaking them, adding bows and slitting the hem, or like whatever it is. And then did you go to like design school, fashion school? And what was your inspiration in terms of like when you looked at designers who had already made it or were on the runway? Which names were you looking at?
For sure. So that's a compounded question. So after, learning from my mom and sort of going through high school, middle school, actually elementary school, because I sold my first piece when I was 10, because again, one of my friends asked me to make her something, and I made her a pair of pants, sold them for $5. And then another classmate saw it and I made her a pair. So so I started entrepreneurship pretty young. And it wasn't just the sewing, it was arts, it was calligraphy. I like poetry. So I liked a lot of creative things. But I think that sewing really sort of captured my heart, because it was something that you could start with a 2-dimensional object and end up with something 3D that was really meaningful. And I just sort of fell in love with the process of creation. And so when I was about 12, we used to do like day camp for girls. And so they would teach little crafting things and that helped me. And then when I was about 13, I took a summer sewing course where I learned how to sew on an industrial sewing machine for the first time. And that was really interesting. I did sew my finger, but it didn't stop me. I was very excited. And then from there, I just kind of kept falling in love with it. And I knew that it's something that I wanted to keep in my life. I didn't know how it would manifest itself, but it was very special to me. And so I wanted to keep it with me. When I was in my early 20s is when I decided to enter into fashion design school and take that plunge and make that decision that this would be a career that I wanted to bring into fruition and I wanted to manifest. And when I was in design school, I didn't necessarily, so I grew up pretty sheltered, so I didn't know a ton about all the big names in fashion. I wasn't familiar with them until I went to school and started learning about them. But I remember one class in particular where I wanted to learn so desperately about corsetry and how to put in boning, and I wanted to try horsehair braid, which is a finish for a hem. And I just love that, anything that could make the female form just look fantastic. And I was just so curious about expanding my knowledge. And I came across these designs on Pinterest. And this was back in like 2013 or something. So I came across these designs on Pinterest, and I didn't know the designer. I just printed off a bunch of them, and I was like, this is my aesthetic that I want to learn how to do these things. And of course, for me, everything was with a modest adaptation, because it's not something that I saw out in the world. At that time, I didn't see it much at all, especially not couture fashion. And so I was like, okay, I'll use these as my inspiration, but I will adapt them in a modest way. And I later learned that that designer was Zach Posen. And so that's how I came to fall in love with his aesthetic and fall in love with, him as a person, what he represented for women, especially women of color, and the diversity in the models that he worked with. I really liked his mission eventually. But at that time, I was drawn to the designs, and I found out that they were his. So he was one of the big influencers for me at that time.
That's amazing. So on your season of Project Runway, was he one of the judges still, or had they switched?
Yes.
He was?
He was.
Okay, because I watched this a long time ago. He was. So were you able to?
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And
I was.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. I was able to meet him, and that was something that I put on my bucket list, that he's just a designer that I really wanted to learn from. I really wanted to speak to, and I had the opportunity to talk to him. And after the show, a couple years later, I actually interned with him. So I definitely built that relationship.
That's amazing. How fulfilling is that for you to genuinely get inspiration from him, use him in design school as your inspiration, but with a twist. And then years later, you never know. I'm pretty sure, you're making du'as may Allah, help me to get through to this, or help me even to meet him, or whatever. And then later on, you get to be on the show where he's coincidentally one of the judges. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I make duas all the time about the things that I want. I talk to a lot about my dreams and my intention, and making sure that I'm staying on the right track, but also manifesting this gift and this talent that he gave me at such a young age. It's actually been very important for me that I manifest the beauty of this gift that was bestowed on me, and I continue to hone it, and I continue to develop it. So absolutely.
MashaAllah. And we see that coming through on all your designs. We do have to go for a break, and then we'll talk a little bit more about modest fashion designers that might have inspired you and your journey on Project Runway. So we'll be back.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to This Hijabi Life. We are here talking to Ayana Ife, who was one of my favorite guests challengers on designers on Project Runway years ago, but I'm totally geeked to be talking to you today. So let's talk a little bit more about your inspiration from a modest fashion designer perspective. So we talked about Zach Posen and how you loved his designs, but you had to kind of tweak it. But what you mentioned in one of your interviews was Rabia Z. And I think she's a source of inspiration for so many people who started years ago. I mean, she pioneered modest fashion on the runway starting in 2001, before people even knew what the word hijab was. You'd always have to be explaining, oh, I'm a Muslim, I wear a hijab. All through our childhood, you get all of these questions. And I think that her normalization of hijab from a religious perspective was her being able to make it seen by people. It's not just something that that we kind of wear and we're not willing to like talk about, to celebrate, to get creative with, etc. So I think she was really inspiring for a lot of people. So I want to hear, you know, what did it mean to you to see someone like Rabia Z on the runway with hijab and long dresses and fully covered? How did that speak to you as a designer?
So Rabia Z was extremely influential for me in the sense that prior to going to fashion design school, I was on the trajectory to go into the nursing program. So I was going to be a nurse. And at the time I was taking prerequisites, my heart was in design, but my family advised me to focus on stability in a career that, you know, could last with me, something safe and something that had guarantees. And I began on that trajectory, even though my heart wasn't in it. And I remember being on campus in my dorm, studying for anatomy and physiology too. And I was miserable. I was far from home. And I was feeling as though I was not living the life that was meant for me. And I took a break from studying and I was watching a YouTube video and I saw a designer with these incredible, flowy, just draping hijabs and, you know, these harem pants and bright colors. And I was captivated for two reasons. One, obviously, the work was fantastic and it was breathtaking. But two, it was a special message for me, the way that I received it, which was, you have this talent, you know, why are you not exploiting this talent that you have? Why are you not making the most of who you are? That is the message that I received when I saw her designs. And again, it wasn't for me about the artist, much like with Zach Posen. It wasn't that I want to follow this artist because they're a famous artist. It was more so about what her designs meant to me, being hijabs on runway, just women feeling empowered in their clothing, a woman helping other women to feel uplifted, putting that out in just such a beautiful and positive way to self-actualize is how I took it. And prior to seeing that video, I was approached by a nurse in our community, and she was saying, oh, I wanted to get together a group of nurses and nursing students and just sort of build this wonderful interactive community. And, you know, we can do some outreach work and things like that. Beautiful cause, incredible. And I told her, well, it's at the time it was right before Ramadan, and I was saying like, hey, I need to do some soul searching, and I don't know if I'm going to even follow through and apply to the program. I'll let you know, you know. And then I came across this video, and I did my soul searching, and that was my answer. So that summer, I finished up the Anatomy and Physiology 2 class, and I was at Juma, and you're going to think I'm making this up, but I was at Juma, and a young lady approached me. Her name was Haifa. I'll never forget her name. She wasn't a friend of mine. She had attended a fashion show that I had at the Islamic Center like in 2013 or something. And she was saying, aren't you that girl who wants to do fashion? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, well, you should check out MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. And she was like, they have a fashion program. And I was like, and at the time I didn't know about them. They weren't advertising as a fashion school. I had gone to several other schools to look for programs, but I didn't find anything that could take me further than what I knew. And so it was luck, timing, a lot, whatever you want to call it. I think that it was my message, and it was for me. So that plus the Rabia Z video, I have my answer, and I move forward, you know, and that's what I did.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's as if you found yourself in like a fork in the road, and it can either be one way, and then you would have maybe never had the time to look back at fashion. Fashion would have always been something that you continue to like tweak clothing or make clothes for your friends and stuff like that. But the fact that you focused on it, now you're a designer.
Absolutely. And I'm a very all-in person. Yeah. I'm a very all-in person. So if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to commit to it. I'm not going to be colored outside of the lines. And so when I was in design, when I was in doing prerequisites for nursing, my heart wasn't in it. And so I was
Yeah.
still doing custom work on the side. I was still going shopping for fabric, and I was feeling all the time like I was leaving something behind. And so
Yeah.
obviously switching over to fashion design has its challenges, but if it's a
Hmm.
fight worth fighting, then I can't really argue with that because it's for me and it makes sense for me. So
Yeah. Mashallah. So, just I love the part where you mentioned that it's as if the representation that, say, mainstream designers gave you was more so just like, okay, this is a style that I would like, or this is what resonates to me. But when you saw
hmm
Rabia Z's designs,
hmm
it was about 10 levels deeper. Like it kind of pierced you in a way that really changed the
absolutely,
trajectory of your life. And I feel
completely.
like and I feel like that's what representation does. Like when you see someone who does something that you like, you might become their fan, or you might like, go to their Pinterest board. But when you see someone who looks like you or has something that resonates with you, the same faith, the same perspective, then that makes it feel like you can also do it. There's another level that it reaches. And that's why representation matters so much. But for those people who don't even know what Project Runway is, we're talking a lot about, you as a designer, and like, the fact that I love these types of shows. Can you give us a rundown of like, what is the Project Runway show and
Absolutely.
what's your role in that show? Um, and then for you to be a modest fashion designer on that show, what did that mean to you?
Sure. Very compounded question. So, what is Project Runway? It's a reality TV series where fashion designers come from all walks of life to compete on weekly challenges for the opportunity to win somewhere between $100,000 or more, a car, resources for sewing, pattern making supplies, and mentorship with the Council of Fashion Designers of America, and sometimes also a vacation. So lots to gain there. Basically,
Yeah.
every week there's a challenge and one person gets eliminated. It starts with 16 designers, and each week someone gets eliminated. In the end, there can only be one winner. When I was on Project Runway, there were uh, all kinds of ups and downs. It was really another form of me stepping into my self actualization and becoming even more confident in myself and in my mission and with what modest fashion means to me. At that time, I wasn't as refined as I am now. I didn't have all of the information about my mission and modest consumers. I didn't know about all that. At the time, it was more so about me manifesting a dream, which had
Mm.
started from when I was younger, which I went to fashion school for. And I was actually a fan of Project Runway before ever competing on the show. And I used to watch, and I loved Tim Gunn and I loved Zach Posen, and I wanted the opportunity to learn from them. Also,
Yeah.
Nina Garcia. And so I had this thought while I was in fashion school that maybe I could be among them and not just a fan. And so I started to apply to the show. I applied 4 times to the show before I was accepted on the show. And
Really?
yes, and I auditioned twice. And on my first time that I auditioned, I did not get on the show. And
Mhm.
at the time, it was really important because I was still sort of listening to a lot of voices from other people about my aesthetic, and maybe it wasn't that popular. Maybe there weren't that many people that needed modest fashion. And again, I wasn't that refined as I am now. So when I went into the show, I took some modest pieces and I took some mainstream pieces. They were all my designs, but
Mhm.
there weren't a cohesive story. And so when I presented myself as this person who wants to manifest this brand or this vision, but at the same time, here's what I can do. So it was again, it wasn't as concise as it should be. And so they told me flat out, no, this is not a full vision. You're kind of all over the place. We don't see who you are. We can't
Mhm.
hear who you are. So go back home and come back with a modest collection and show us who you are. And
Mhm.
so it was a slap in the face because I put a lot of money into that. And I was like, not that far out of college. So it was all my own savings, travel and bringing a model with me, and lots of coordination. And
Yeah.
so I went back to my hotel and I cried for a while. And then I was like, you know what? They really had some good points. I took some notes and I went back the next year and I had everything. And I was much more refined about what I wanted to do and who I was. And I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't, meek anymore. I was, this is who I am and this is what I do, and you can take it or leave it. And I got on the show. And that was really, really an important turning point for me. And I think in life, you experience lots of different turning points when you can choose this or that, but they're crucial. You can choose to shrink back, or you can choose to continue moving forward and continue to define and refine yourself. Honesty is most important to me. And I have to be honest with myself about what I am, who I am, what I'm doing, and where I'm going. And so Project Runway helped me to continue to manifest that voice because, again, going back to that young girl who has 5 older sisters, 7 older siblings, there was always someone telling me what to do, but also kind of covering me and shielding me from things, right? A lot of times, like even if I got picked on or something, my older sisters would jump in. So I wasn't really fighting my own fights, so to speak. And so it was tricky for me to essentially find that voice. But again, I sort of reached that crossroads where it's like, I can't always call my sisters. They're not here with me on TV. This is up to me. If I'm going to be this powerful person that I want to be, to manifest this brand, strong enough to take these criticisms, strong enough to fight back when I think that something isn't right, then I have to eventually step into that. And so that's what the show helped me do. I met some incredible designers and I made some wonderful relationships that I still keep until this day. And although I came in second place, I'm sure everyone's wondering how that ended. I came in second place. But at that time, and even now, I had no regrets. And there wasn't anything that I think I could have done better at that time. I think I did everything that I could have. I did everything that I knew how to do. And I was very pleased with my progress and with how far I got. I was able to show a fully modest collection at New York Fashion Week. And there was so many doors that ended up opening up for me after the experience.
Amazing. So what I'm hearing from you, and what I think is a theme for this show, time and time again, women come on this show and they talk about their hijab journey and, their designs and a whole bunch of things. But a common theme is that being unapologetic about your commitment to hijab or your commitment to modest dress, whatever level, whatever style that looks like for you. It is never, it's never a bad idea. It always makes you come out on the top in some way. It makes you win in whatever way it's going to show up for you in your life. And sometimes it comes out, immediately in the situation that you're dealing with right then, or it might manifest years later. But at some point, Allah is going to show you that you sticking to your commitment to hijab is going to be something that's not, it's not regrettable. It's never going to be regrettable. So I love that when you came in the first time, things were not as committed to like the modest fashion aesthetic. For them, it might be an aesthetic, but for you, it's coming way deeper than that. It's a faith thing. And then when you really committed to it, that's when you got on the show. And a lot of times people think that when you do less with your Islam, when you're not as like forward with it, that's when you'll get into these doors. But the door opened for you when you were even more who you are. And I love that. I love that message.
Absolutely.
So when you are, I know that when Project Runway is rolling out its next season, they come up with like these little videos and the pictures of like who's going to be the cast of the next show or the next season. When people are first getting to know that Ayana Ife, this Black Muslim sister in hijab, is going to be representing modest fashion on Project Runway. And this being one of the first times, this is the first time that someone got that far. I know that Nzinga Knight was on the show before, but she didn't get as far. Was there any initial reaction that you can remember that people had before they even were able to see what you had to offer in terms of design, talent, aesthetic, and all of that relatability? What was your first reaction that you remember that people gave you online or in person?
Yeah, so before they aired the show, they showed our pictures. They did tell us don't read comments because, the internet
Oh,
can be a very cruel place. Right. So we were forewarned not to read, but this was my first experience on television and this was my first time putting myself out there to the world like this. So obviously I'm going to read to see what's going on. And I did notice a lot of negativity in the very beginning, and this was prior to the show ever airing. People were saying that if I put the symbol of male oppression on them, they're not going to watch it. And there was a lot of nastiness, but 100%, to be honest with you, it didn't bother me as much as it could have, because I felt very comfortable with who I am. And on the show, I behave very authentically to myself. For example, I didn't say anything about anyone behind their back that I couldn't say comfortably to their face and that they wouldn't feel like I was backbiting them or being two-faced or anything like that. Before I went on the show, my Umi told me to do two things: to be yourself and have fun. And that's exactly what I did. And that's what I continue to do throughout the show. So the nasty negativity that I saw when they first aired our photos, it wasn't surprising to me. But at the same time, I was thinking to myself that when they see how well I've done on the season, it's really going to change people's attitudes towards me. And it did. And so I understood off the bat, you're judging me because of some extra yardage of fabric. That's awkward. And I'm not going to allow that to negatively impact me. I have so many incredible friends who are very confident within their faith and who are very comfortable in themselves and who they are. And I learn from my friends throughout life, and I learn through amazing people that I see who are Muslim, who are not Muslim, who are Christian, who are just different walks of life, but walk with pride in who they are. And I think there's a lot to be said about standing in your power and comfortably. And it doesn't have to be a negativity about it. You can teach people how to treat you by showing up authentically and respecting yourself. And I have found that although the initial reaction may be one of judgment, that is a reflection on someone else. That's not a reflection on you. And so, of course, that comes with time and with experience. But because I had the backing of my mother and I had the backing of so many of my family members and friends, that I'm thinking I went on authentically. We had a wonderful time and opportunity, and I'm not going to tarnish it by someone else's negativity.
Yeah. And for that first challenge, I remember it vividly, where you made the most beautiful draped long dress that had a train. Hijab was fully on. Nothing showed but the face and the hands. I mean, that model, it was a statement that meant like, boom, I'm here. I've owned this modest fashion aesthetic, which is formed by my faith and who I am. It was such a statement. And I think everyone who saw just your picture or like, oh, I'm a modest fashion designer, before the season dropped, their mouths were shut because not only did you make something absolutely stunning, but you actually won that first challenge. And you set the bar. The person who set the bar on the show was the girl who didn't show any skin on her model and spoke her faith through her fashion and her talent. So that from that time on, I was just like, okay, I'm Team Ayana. And if she doesn't win this show, I'm going to literally I'm going to write into the show and have them do a redo, because this is crazy. Mashallah. I've always been a big fan of that show. And I watched it for all the seasons before, always thinking, if a Muslim sister was on this show and gave hijab fashion or modest fashion, people's minds would be blown. This is a gap where they're not really serving all of us, but we're here just loving fashion. But if a Muslim sister was on the show, she would kill it. And that's exactly what you did. So we do have to go for another break, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what you're doing now, which is an activewear line, and just more chats with Ayana Ife. So we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to This Hijabi Life. We've been talking today with Ayana Ife, one of my favorite contestants on Project Runway, which is a design show where she gave collection after collection of modest fashion, hijab fashion, which I love. So since the show wrapped and you came in second place, which still hurts. It hurts me. I know it hurts me so bad because I really want to see you win. And I think it was stolen from you. Like that New York Fashion Week show was incredible. That final green dress that went down the runway with the tulle and the floating, and it was just beautiful. But alhamdulillah for everything, right? Everything that happens to the Muslim is good, whether one way or the next. So I want to know what the show, after the show wrapped, what were your pursuits thereafter? And what is your collection looking like now?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was an incredible experience for me, and really sort of brought me a little bit out of my shell more so. I did lots of speaking engagements, talking to youth, talking to different people about the importance of self-expression, of finding your tribe, and the importance of self-actualization, confidence. I taught as well at college. I taught a college course. I've done some workshops. I've done lots of different things. I also do custom bridal with Ayana Ife Bride. And most recently, my passion project, my baby, is Ayana Active. Mm-hmm. And Ayana Active is a sustainable, ethical, trendy, of course, modest fashion sportswear line for women, and it's made in the USA. This is the biggest project I have ever taken on because it is not custom work. It is me doing all the pattern work. As you can see, lots of stuff behind me. I do pattern work. I do all of the designs. I create the collection, and I work with some US-based manufacturers for mass production, for copying my patterns and for getting large scale of the designs out. Why did I switch over to mass production? Small batch manufacturing, but still mass production, because of you guys, my audience. I interviewed you while I was doing my master's degree in business, and you said that sportswear was the hardest thing to find. Really nice, trendy, modest sportswear that gives you confidence to get out and live an active lifestyle, to go to the gym comfortably without having to wear an oversized t-shirt, but things that are actually made for a mature woman who wants to participate in fashion and in trends, but not to compromise on your modesty standards. And so that's where Ayana Active comes in. You can find us at ayanaactive.com on Instagram and sign up for early access so that you'll get that email when it's time to shop. We're almost there. We've got lots of amazing colors. This is one of the colors in the upcoming collection. And it's just been an incredible design process, getting feedback from you guys, getting an incredible logo, and just moving forward with getting modest fashion out there. My dream is to be able to have modest fashion in the United States be fashion and be clothing, not this scary modest clothing or this boring modest clothing, but I see modest fashion integration as something for our future. And it's my goal to not just manifest my own dream, but to have more accessibility for young women like my nieces and nephews, and I'm sorry, not nephews, like my nieces and my younger sisters, and just young women that I see all over when I do workshops who tell me that they're looking for more more, that they're looking for coverage, that they're looking for confidence in their clothing. And this is women who cover for a number of reasons. It could be age. Maybe they're getting a little older and don't want to show so much. Size. They want to have more coverage but still feel that confidence. Protection from the sunlight, safety, and of course, faith-based reasons. And so that's where Ayana Active comes in, here to cheer you on in your sports activities. And so that's my passion project that I'm working on right now.
Mashallah, that is so much needed. There's such a gap. There's many gaps in modest fashion still, especially that's based. And sportswear, activewear is definitely a gap that I'm so happy that you're helping to fill. What are some exciting features of your designs that might set it apart from others?
Absolutely. I love that question. So one of the big things with Ayana Active, which is what sparked this interest for me, was if you've ever shopped in mainstream clothing stores, you're going from store to store to get that complete outfit. So you're mixing blacks, you're mixing logos, you're kind of patchworking your outfit. And that is a big struggle. So with Ayana Active, we are offering matching sets. So each top has a coordinating pants that is not an afterthought. It is completely designed together to work as a set. I've been in the gym before and I've seen the most cutest girls with the matching bra and pants, and it's like, can we get something like that for us? And that's really the idea, like, so that you feel cute, you feel beautiful, but you want to get out and you want to move and you want to do it with style. So we have the matching sets. We have really wonderful colors. So not all blacks, but we do have black, but then we also have bright colors like this, neutral colors for women that want to be a little bit more understated. And of course, we've got lots of pockets, and I know that's a big one. We got functional pockets on each piece. And we have hijabs that coordinate as well. So I'm really excited to get this out there. We're size inclusive. So all of our sizes range from the smaller sizes, and then we go all the way up to 3X in the beginning based on demand. We will be able to expand that. So I do have the patterns for larger sizes, but we have to see how everyone feels once we launch. But yep, we are full size inclusive, and all of our fabrics, what makes them sustainable is that they are ethically sourced fabrics. So the companies that we work with, they have the Okiotech certification, which means that the fabrics don't have chemicals and things that could be harmful to the skin, and that they're using some form of an environmental friendly process in their production. It could be recycled material, it could be water retention or less water waste. So that's a big a very important aspect of Ayana Active, because I want Ayana Active to be influential, yes, because of the style, yes, because we're serving this underserved population of women who need and want modest sportswear, but also we want to do it in the most ethical and proper way that we can, which is, again, why we chose to do US-based production, because we have more control over the value chain and more control over the ethics behind creation of clothing with fair trade wages, and being able to visit factories, understanding the language, and be able to see exactly how employees are being treated. Those are all really important to Ayana Active. And so we've chosen to be a US-based brand and to have sustainable materials.
I really appreciate that you have baked in so many ethics into your brand. Because what we're seeing a lot these days is kind of an uncovering of the fact that fashion can be such a toxic industry, in terms of, using child labor, using slave labor, especially from the Muslim community, the Uyghur Muslims who are enslaved in China. And they're coming out with abayas made by people who are paid cents on the hour or day, or not paid at all, and forced into these encampments where they're untaught their Islam. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. And then websites get, they throw up a $15 pant or a $5 shirt, and you're like, oh, modest fashion, and you snatch it up. And it's almost mindless. And I don't mean to exclude from the conversation people who cannot afford, a more custom experience like the Ayana activewear brand. But there is definitely places that you can shop that's a lot more mindful. And it's not just trying to steal designs and throw them up for like 70% off.
I think I agree with you. I think that there's also the issue of education behind who makes your clothing. And I think that especially for US citizens, I'm going to say, that information is not that commonly shared in stores that we shop at. And it's not very out there in front of you. So unless you're going to be curious about it, it's harder for you to be able to say, I know where this is coming from, or I know where that is coming from. Of course, information is more accessible now than it used to be. But again, there has to be that curiosity there. And that's why before our launch of Ayana Active, we have talked a lot about it. If you go to ayanaactive.com, you'll see in our journal, our weekly journal, where we talk a lot about the industry, about what sustainability is, because a lot of times there's greenwashing, which is slapping a label on something and calling it sustainable, but not really explaining how it's sustainable. It's very easy to throw that term around. And then sometimes with what we see as being sustainable, those designs look like they're hemp. That hemp and also like they look very bland. Not that hemp has to be bland, but they look very bland. They don't look appealing to people. And so people do sometimes get the wrong idea about what it means to be sustainable or what it means to be ethical. There are many ways to be sustainable. I really believe that it starts with education and with educating the audience so that they understand, what does it mean, slave labor? What does this mean? What do you mean someone can't take a break after 14, 15, 16 hours of what do you mean by this? People are really in the dark and don't know exactly what's going on. But I think that when you do know, then it's again your responsibility to take action and to find alternatives. We can't know everything about everything that we use, but we can start somewhere. And you can start at Ayana Active. Investment pieces, high quality clothing that can last you a very long time.
Definitely. So what I'm hearing from you is that like you have a lot of pieces of your brand that are mindful. You know, you're very intentional about maybe the shape, the fabric, the features, the colors, how it fits, the inclusivity. There's a lot that you have done to make your brand the way that it is. How many years? What was your process like to go from, I think I want to go activewear to I'm launching in 2024. How many years was that, and what was that process like?
Dear. It's been quite some time. So after Project Runway was 2017, 2018 was kind of when we wrapped up. And so after that, I was sewing, right? I didn't have the mission of sustainability or anything yet, because again, I too was someone who didn't know much about the idea of sustainability. I knew about production, and I was always going to be US based production, but I didn't know a ton about the fabrics and what that meant. So I had my own studio, I was working with some interns, and we were just cranking out designs. A lot of my work from the show, people wanted recreations of, so I was remaking things and shipping. And we did that for a while. And I reached a point where we had lots of orders, but I made an executive decision to stop selling because I wanted to understand more clearly how to run a brand. I was selling a sportswear top one day, then I was selling a button-up shirt the next day, and we were going back and forth between stretch and woven, and I just wanted things to be, I wanted something scalable, I wanted something that I could grow, I wanted something that had more direction, that had a future built into it, I wanted something that I could grow. And what I was doing at the time, although it was successful, that's not how I wanted to run a business. I wanted to learn more so about how to create a business model and grow that. And so I decided to go back to school. So I applied to the school in Italy, which was a master's degree in business with a concentration on fashion, the fashion industry. And to make a long story short, I got a scholarship, partial scholarship. I paid the rest of the scholarship, and then I opened up a crowdfunding through LaunchGood to get some support from my audience to live in Italy for a year. And it was very ambitious. And were very successful and had such incredible support from my audience, which is again why I've kept your recommendations in mind and have implemented them in the creation of Ayana Active. And so what I did after we raised this $11,000 in a month, I got on the plane and I went to Italy, and I was there for about a year, less than a year, doing the program. I graduated. I have my master's degree now. But when I was there, I learned about sustainability. I learned about the industry, a lot more about the fashion industry, which was not something I went there for. I went there to understand the world of business from the fashion perspective and figure out how to create a really successful business plan, to pitch the product, to do these sort of things, and to learn how to scale. So that's what I went for. While I was there, I had the bonus of learning about sustainability because it was built into the master's program. I went to Amsterdam, I went to Denim City, I went to all these places like Fashion for Good that talked about sustainability and what that means, and how they went into the production of a simple white cotton t-shirt that takes 27 liters of water to produce. And these are numbers I wasn't aware of, and that the people that are exploited the most are people in lower income communities, especially women who are the foundation of the family, because they are the mothers of the family, and they are the ones who are being paid 6 cents and things for hours and hours of work. And it was just deplorable. And with all that information, I couldn't in good conscience come back home and forget what I had learned. Yeah. So at that time is when we decided to be an environmentally friendly company. And while I was in Italy, I did the survey to my audience, asking them what is the most important, because I learned about picking, getting your target, zooming in on that target, manifesting, and then once you got something, you can use that model to grow other areas of the brand. And so at that time, I asked, okay, guys, I'm doing bridal, I'm doing all this. What's it going to be? So they said, hey, we would love if you could give us some more sportswear. So that was back in 2019. So you can do the math about how long it's taken. So 2019, I was in a master's program. We had a group, and I asked my group if we could use my brand as the model, because we had to create a brand in the course. Everyone was fine with it. So we did research for my brand. And in the end of the course, we had a product pitch and lots of research about target market and that sort of thing. So I used that when I came back to the United States to get Ayana Active's first investor, and to continue with fabric sourcing and production and prototyping and advertising and all of these different things that go into the creation of a brand. Obviously, there are many ways to manifest your dreams and goals and your designs as creative people or as entrepreneurs. But this is the path that I took, because this is the path that had the most meaning for me. And so coming back to the United States, obviously, we had COVID. So,
oh no,
slowed down quite a bit. Yes, as you know, slowed down. I graduated in 2020 with my master's degree, and in the beginning of 2020, and then COVID happened. So all production was shut down for a little over a year, about a year and a half. No one was responding at that time, maybe almost 2 years. And then I was making masks, selling masks, donating masks for a women's shelter, and then making some fashion ones to sell. So after that, I focused my time on pattern making. So while the world was shut down and I lost my job in New York City and lots of craziness happened, I was kind of laying low and doing some pattern making for Ayana Active. So just kind of working out some of the first patterns for the line. And then after that, once places were opened back up, I started doing fabric sourcing. So I attended some fabric trade shows, learned more about sustainability, attended webinars, seminars, that sort of thing, and started getting my feet wet with how that process works. And eventually I started working with pattern graders who digitize my hand patterns and size them. And it has been quite the process. And so now, fast forward to 2024, we are a few months away from brand launch. We haven't set the exact date yet, but we are very close to being able to say, all right, click purchase, and it's here for you. So it's been quite a journey of love, passion, and good intentions. And so, inshallah, everything continues to manifest itself in a profitable way and in a way that's meaningful for the women that are wearing Ayana Active and who feel empowered by Ayana Active.
I mean, I pray that this becomes your most successful path that you've taken. As you can tell, anyone who's watching, becoming a fashion designer or putting out a collection, is a process. And this woman has done everything from, being a part of a show to honing in on her inspiration, becoming, more of a master in learning not only just how to create, but what are the elements that create a successful brand, baking in tons of mindful and thoughtful pieces or pieces of her brand that can manifest in the clothing. But when you see that link, when you finally search, Ayana Ife, and you're able to add to cart, realize that this is coming from a woman who has done the work. This is not just buying it from Forever 21. And right. I really, really want to hone in on that point, because I know that a lot of people tend to compare someone like you, who's a master at her craft, to anything on the main street or in the mall. And it is completely unfair. So I would love for everyone watching to go ahead and support her, whether this episode is coming out after her active launch or she's just before the launch. Go ahead and follow her, support her in any way, and sign up to newsletters or whatever it is that you need to be able to get those notifications, so that when she does drop her line, you're in line ready to support. We have to come back after a break to wrap up with Ayana Ife. This has been so exciting for me. So we'll come back after the break and we'll have final words. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome back to This Hijabi Life. We have had an exciting conversation with Ayana Ife today, who was a contestant on Project Runway and has an exciting new launch of her activewear, Ayana Active. Tell everyone here, as we wrap up the show, where they can find you, in case they're not able to find where to support you at. So tell us your website, your Instagram, and all of that. And give us some final words of inspiration. There's a lot of people watching who might be looking at you and saying, you know what, I want to be just like her. Whether that's a little girl or someone, one of our peers, or someone older who wants to go back to school or something like that. Tell us, what can inspire those people to go from ideation of their brand or their pursuit to actually, making it happen.
Absolutely. So you can find us at www.ayanaactive.com. That's our main website. We're also on Instagram. On Instagram, you can find us at Ayana Active and at Ayana Ife if you want to follow me as well. You can also follow me on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. If you are not on social media, I recommend going straight to the website and signing up so that you get that notification. You register for early access, which is your name and your email address, and you'll get that notification when it's time to shop. And you really don't want to miss out because, again, with our sustainable model, everything is going to be minimal production. So once it's gone until the next round. So I'm very excited about that. When it comes to manifesting yourself, your dream, your vision, one of the things that I learned along my journey is that my dream matters. And a lot of times we look at so much that happens in the world. There's so much ugliness. There's, loss of life, loss of family, and it sometimes it feels as though this little thing you want to do may be a little trivial. But if you are able to do good with your skill set, if you are able to contribute to society in a positive way, to contribute to your family and your loved ones in a positive and beautiful way that is authentic to you and that puts goodness into this world, then that is 100% worth it. Whatever your dream is, don't be shy to say, this is who I am. And it may take a little while to pull that out of you, but just remember that if someone else's dream is worth it, your dream is definitely worth it. There's so many of us, and Allah made us different for a reason, because we've all got something that's important to say. So continue to hone your thoughts and your abilities. And if you're new to this journey and you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, just start somewhere. Whatever is in the back of your mind that is good and that is honest and you want to try, give it a try until you find what sticks. Everyone doesn't know in the beginning who they are, what they want to do, but don't step back and pull into yourself. Go out there and try things. And once you realize that something else is for you, then make that switch. And inshallah, that would be successful for you. So again, the whole mission behind Ayana Active is that we want to encourage women to look deep within themselves and to unleash their own hero. So go out there and be the person that you want to be and be the good impact that you want to see in this world.
I love that. I love that. I mean to that. Thank you so much, Ayana, for talking with us today. Muslim Network TV loves to have, conversations like this that are impactful. And on this show, we are celebrating Muslim women and hijab and fashion, and you are the epitome of that. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Wonderful.
Alhamdulillah. So in my final words, as I'm recording this show today, recently there's been a lot of incidents, a higher incidence rate of Islamophobia. And I asked Ayana a question earlier in the interview, because it really speaks to kind of the timelessness, unfortunately, of Islamophobic incidents. When people first see an image of a Muslim woman, she's talented, she is creative, she's doing her thing, she's on Project Runway, she's on TV, she's clearly winning at whatever she's doing. A lot of times that gut instinct for people can be, some kind of erasure of her joy, taking away her talent, saying that she shouldn't be there. It's not a place for her. And like Ayana said, it's not a reflection on that person. It's meaning the person who's on the receiving end of those insults, but more so on the society and that person who made those comments or did those actions against the Muslim woman. And on this show, one of the things we want to demonstrate is that women are way more than just our hijabs. Although the show is called This Hijabi Life, it is more so about the lifestyle and the faith and the layers to being a Muslim woman. And somehow I hope that this show is able to dispel those stereotypes that would cause someone to see someone as talented and as deep as Ayana Ife is, and just say she doesn't deserve to be here. Or to see a woman walking around, in Europe today, where there's a lot of Islamophobic riots, and want to do her harm. The humanization of us, we shouldn't have to do that work, but it comes in so many different ways. And I really believe that hijab is one of the most beautiful things that Muslim women practice that can help to stamp that out. And unfortunately, it has become more so of a target for some people than something to celebrate. So inshallah, may Allah help us all to stay protected and positive about our hijab journeys, and take inspiration from people like Ayana Ife and the other guests we've had on the show, as opposed to focusing on the hate or the violence that is out there that is targeting against Muslim women. So thank you guys all for watching, and tune in next week where we'll have another amazing guest on This Hijabi Life. And until then, stay covered and blessed beautifully.